especially when you spend 10 years in an environment, you kind of become like a dinosaur or complacent. And I wanted to challenge myself a little bit to see at least what is out there, like what do I not know.
Learning happens when things fail, when it breaks, when you do the troubleshooting, when you try to fix the issue, and when you actually fix the issue.
And I applied, I gave interviews, and unfortunately, then nothing worked out. Like not Google, not Meta, and I think I interviewed at Lyft also at that time. So all three interviews like didn't go well, and it was very devastating.
It is okay to feel demotivated. It is okay to feel like I don't have many skills or I'm not good for tech industry. It's okay. Like life gives you that situation. Life put you in that situation many a time.
Motivation or that feeling was still there, right? Like no, I have to prove that no, I think I can do. And then ultimately, I got 5 offers, like out of which like Google, Meta, Robinhood, Coinbase.
Your Twitter handle VJ Insight totally justify what you bring to the table.
Generally, at least big tech look at interns as future hires, right? Like they don't look at them as oh just do some dirty work that nobody else wants to do.
Does your college degree or your CGPA actually matters to get into a big tech?
In the DevOps space, it is more difficult to kind of add complex projects and make your resume stand out, right?
So, okay, let's talk about the interview process of a software engineering candidate at Google. How's the typical process look like?
Maybe either build your career in or in your words, like make it AI proof.
Why do we learn coding if everything has to be done with AI? Finally, after a long time, we managed to find a time that fits well for both of us. And thank you, Vineet ji, for taking out the time and recording so early in the morning. It's 6:30 a.m. and we are recording on a weekend. So thank you so much for being here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you, POG? And thank you very much for having me here. I think we were discussing for a while, but sorry
Yeah.
for going back and forth. But I
No,
think
no,
very happy
that's
to be here and happy to talk to your audience.
it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure having you here, and I'm sure this will be a valuable session for everyone who's listening to this. So, why don't we start with your introduction in your own words?
Hi, I'm Vinit, mostly known on Twitter as VJ. Those are my initials. Right now, I'm an engineering manager at Google. Before that, I worked at Amazon for about 6.5 years. And before that, I started my career in US at a company called Bloomberg LP, which is mainly in the financial data and analytics kind of space. I originally from India. I grew up in India. I did my undergrad in India. Uh, from like in the popular Twitter lingo from a tier 3 college. So I think we may talk a little bit about that. And then I came to US to do my master's. I think that was one of the most transforming experience of my life, and we can talk about that also if we have time.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's a little bit about myself. I'm a family man. In my free time, sometimes I spend time with my family. Sometimes I'm also a little bit into exercising, not super bodybuilding or anything like that, but try to stay active. A little bit of running, a little bit of weightlifting. I'm a foodie, so maybe you won't see that on my on my body because a lot of this thing is kind of the result of not controlled eating. But anyways, that's sorry to digress. But yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
No, no, that's great insight, and as you call it, VJ insight. So that's how I know you, right? Like a couple of years back, when you started being active on Twitter and you started sharing those insights that were really helpful, and I got to know about you, and then we came in touch through some mutual friends, through some mutual groups, but we never really got a chance to do the podcast together. But finally, here we are, and finally I'm excited to share your experience, your journey, and your perspective of engineering to the wider audience over here. So that's great to know about your academic background. Maybe we can talk about your journey as well, from Bloomberg to Amazon to being in Google. How was it like, and like how did you prepare yourself for that?
The first hop from Bloomberg to Amazon, that was actually not planned at all. So I had spent 10 years in Bloomberg. I was doing pretty well over there.
Wow.
And I did not have any intention of moving
Mhm.
out,
Mhm.
especially when things are looking good. So I started my career as a developer in Bloomberg, but
Mhm.
by year 8 or so, I don't remember exactly when, but I became a manager.
Mhm.
Or in Bloomberg's language, it was called team lead. So that's like an
Mhm.
entry level manager. And then slowly, number of reports or the responsibility that I have was growing. So things were fine. So in that case, why move, right? So
Mhm.
it wasn't an intentional step initially.
Mhm.
But later on, what happened was one of the colleagues that I used to work with at Bloomberg, he joined Amazon, and then after some time, he reached out saying that, "Hey, are you looking?" And I was like, "No, not really." He said there is a position in New York City itself, and which is XYZ, and then
Mm-hmm.
the hiring manager is also from Bloomberg. So why don't you at least have a chat?
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, like, okay, it doesn't hurt to at least see
Yeah.
what's out there, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you spend 10 years in an environment, you kind of become like a dinosaur or complacent. And I wanted to challenge myself a little bit to see at least what is out there, like, what do I not know? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and see like whether something comes out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So then I reached out to the hiring manager. We had a good conversation. Seemed like a good opportunity. And then she said, "Okay, let's just interview." And I was like, "Okay, it doesn't hurt, right?" Anyways, I was not looking, so worst case, I was gonna fail, and so
Yep.
we are back to square one. But it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like, "Oh, I really want to try something and that
Mm-hmm.
didn't work out. Now what?" kind of thing. So I did little bit preparation, not much, max like 2 to 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing that probably played in my favor was in Amazon interviews, especially for managers, like they don't have any coding rounds, so I didn't have to practice like the DSA kind of rounds for a long time. But
Mm-hmm.
they do have system design, they do have behavioral, so I did have to at least organize my thoughts.
Sure.
Need to kind of see, okay, what projects I talk about, because there's a lot of things you do over 10 years, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can't
Yeah.
just talk about everything, right? So you
True.
have
Yeah.
to have a little bit of structure to your
Mm-hmm.
preparation and what you're going to talk about. So I
Mm-hmm.
did that a little bit and appeared for the interview. Maybe because I was kind of, I won't say careless, right? But I didn't have much to lose. At least that's what my
Yes.
mindset was.
Yes.
And maybe that worked out in my favor. And on that first attempt, I got the job. So then after I got an offer, I was like, okay, like now if I'm getting this opportunity with not that much of an effort,
Mm-hmm.
why not try it? And at that time, like Amazon stock was doing well, but it had not skyrocketed like it did
Mm-hmm.
after that, right? So even in terms of compensation, actually both things were my Bloomberg and new Amazon compensation was pretty similar. So it was
Mm-hmm.
not the additional incentive for me to no
Mm-hmm.
still go for it because, oh, you're going to make a lot of money. But I looked at it as an learning opportunity, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
what the role was,
Mm-hmm.
and the technology that we're using, the customers they were serving were completely different from
Mm-hmm.
Bloomberg thing.
Mm-hmm.
So then I made that transition, saying that, okay, it's fine. Money is not more, but at least I'll get to see many different things that I have not in
Mm-hmm.
Bloomberg. So
Yeah.
that's how the first transition went. And
Mm-hmm.
thankfully things worked out. Obviously, like Amazon stock did like reasonably well after that. So no complaints over there. Uh, Transition to Google was very different though. So after about 4 years in Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
that's where probably like the golden time for tech before COVID, like
Yep.
2019. Like a lot of people were getting
Mm-hmm.
offers.
Mm-hmm.
Even after COVID, a couple of years, it was a good time. But
Mm-hmm.
even it had started a little bit before that, and I was kind of getting the FOMO that, hey, like so many of my friends are joining Google Meta, so why not try?
Yeah.
Right. And at that time, I knew that like Google or Meta is not going to be a piece of cake. Like what happened with Amazon, they do have coding rounds, so I'll have to prepare a lot
Mm-hmm.
more.
Oh, even
So
for even for engineering manager, Google
even
had the coding round. Okay.
yes, even for engineering managers, both Google, Meta have coding rounds. Coding,
Okay.
system design, behavioral is what their structure is.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent a lot of time. I joined a coaching class, in specific like FANG interview preparation coaching class, and then
Mm-hmm.
I prepared for about 6 months,
Oh.
and I was feeling confident at that time. Okay, now I think I'll do well.
Mm-hmm.
And right then it was like March 2020, like peak of COVID. So
Mm-hmm.
things started changing. Not many companies were interviewing at that time, so I didn't get to practice as such with other
Mm-hmm.
companies. But I had prepared. So I like, okay, let me just still go ahead and apply.
Mm-hmm.
And I applied. I gave interviews, and unfortunately, then nothing worked out. Like not Google, not Meta, and I
Mm-hmm.
think I interviewed at Lyft also at that time. So all three interviews like didn't go well, and it was very devastating. Right? It was you try so hard, you prepare so hard, and you start questioning your self-worth, right? Like, hey, I have experience in Bloomberg and Amazon, and I still cannot clear these interviews after like 6 months of preparation, right?
Mm-hmm.
That hits you hard. And
Yeah, six
especially
months of
at first,
preparation plus 15 years of experience at that time.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So it was very damaging to my like self-confidence, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, maybe I'm not worth it, right? Like maybe I got into Amazon by fluke, and it maybe this is what I'm supposed to be. And but I mean, I'm not justifying these thoughts, but I'm a human. Like these thoughts do come to your mind.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But then I think what I did was I was fortunate enough to get some feedback. So at least the good part was the technical aspect wasn't bad. The behavioral side was lacking some data points. And that is one of the tricky things, right? Like there is no right or wrong answer. In coding, at least you solved the problem or didn't. But in behavioral, you explain some situation with what you did, and then
Mm,
how do you know whether it's right or wrong? Unless you're doing something outright stupid. But
mm,
of course, I wasn't.
mm,
But then the leveling was different, right? Like I was interviewing for L6 position, and the answers that they were, or the data points they were getting, they were not satisfied that, oh, this is like L6 level material. So I
mm,
internalized that feedback. I then did an internal transfer in Amazon. So that interview preparation actually helped me because
mm.
even to transfer within Amazon, I had to go through like 4 rounds of interviews,
Okay.
including system design.
Okay.
So it wasn't the preparation wasn't a complete waste, but
Mm,
the change gave me additional opportunities that I could
mm,
then later on use in my experience.
mm,
So I stayed with the new team for about a year and a half or two,
mm.
but then that still uh, uh, motivation or that feeling was still there, right? Like, no, I have to prove that, no, I think I can do better.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So I started preparing again. This time,
Mm-hmm.
the time was on my side. This was post-COVID, so a lot of companies were hiring. So I got a chance to interview at many different companies.
Mm-hmm.
And then ultimately, I got 5 offers, like out of which like
Okay.
Google,
Wow.
Meta, Robinhood,
Wow.
Coinbase, and Shopify. So
Okay.
that was a big kind of morale booster. Obviously, again, I can't take full credit for it. Like the timing matters, right? Like even
Mm-hmm.
people are hiring, you get more opportunities though you get more feedback, you get more opportunities for interview. But still, my preparation was also there, so I can't
Mm-hmm.
credit
Sure.
everything to luck. Like my
Mm,
preparation and persistent definitely paid off. So that's how I got into. So not in my first attempt. It was so my first attempt was March 2020. I think
mm,
the actual offer I got was December 2021. So it was full, like almost 2 years later. And then I joined Google in March 2022. So yeah, it's been almost like 3.25 years now.
wow, that's so inspiring journey. Like I wish I could hear you all day long. About your experience and how you move from one phase to another and how you tackle all of these challenges. And this is so insightful. So, if I were to summarize your entire journey into few points, I would say, this is what they say that you miss 100% of the shots that you did not take.
You don't take.
So
Yeah,
you took your first shot, even though you were not interviewing actively, but then you got the opportunity, you grab it, you prepared yourself, and then you took the shot. Then you didn't have anything to lose, as you've mentioned. So that increases your chances of getting selected. When you don't have the fear of failure, when you don't have something to lose, okay, you already had a job which is well settled, it was paying a good incentive, and you were not actively looking, so you didn't have much to lose over there. And then it is okay. The another important lesson for anyone who's watching this video, it is okay to feel demotivated. It is okay to feel like I don't have many skills, or I'm not good for tech industry. It's okay. Like life gives you that situation, life put you in that situation many a times. Even an engineering manager with 15 years of experience who worked with so many big brands, Bloomberg, Amazon, he felt the same way at some point of level, and it's okay to do that. But that's actually a fuel for your motivation that maybe have prepared you, to work even harder. You said then earlier you gave the interview for just few weeks of preparation, and then you actually did practice coding for 6 months. You joined the boot camp, you prepared yourself for what coming next. So you actually did not just wait for the right time, you got yourself prepared for the right time. So when there is a right time, you are there for the interview, you are there to crack the interview. I'll say this again, this is so inspiring, and I'm sure everyone will be getting value out of it. Let's talk about your role as an engineering manager. So what are the skills you look for in candidate when it comes to hiring?
Yeah, so that kind of depends on the company. That also varies across levels. Like what
Mm,
you're looking for in a junior developer, you cannot
sure.
expect the same thing from senior developer. And then
Mm,
many companies, like especially these FANG companies, have a very structured process or
mm,
specific expectations, right? But if you have to kind of still there are common threads across it. So I can't say that, oh, it only depends. I can give you answer only for this or
mm,
that. So
mm,
I think what are the baseline, or what are the common theme across that, right? Like, of
Mm-hmm.
course, we're talking about the software development, the software engineer kind of roles, right? So
Sure.
having strong technical skills and problem solving skills is a
Mm-hmm.
must, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're a great talker, but if you can't really solve a problem, like that doesn't help well, right? So that's like a baseline thing. And then
Mm-hmm.
for more junior person, like they don't have a lot of experience, right? So obviously, what do you look for in that is
Mm-hmm.
mainly the curiosity and adaptability, right? Like, are they curious? Do they have learning mindset?
Mm-hmm.
What would they do in a high pressure environment? Like, would they be able to take what they have and still like work with people?
Mm-hmm.
How do they kind of if they're put into different teams, or even if they move internally, like if the tech stack changes, how quickly can they learn? Or are they waiting for things to be told to them? Like, are they expecting hand holding? So these kind of things you you can kind of assess through behavioral questions. You can
Mm-hmm.
also kind of assess when you are actually interviewing them, like even their technical problem, how they, if they're stuck, what do they do?
Mm-hmm.
So these are some things we focus on the more on the junior side. On the
Mm-hmm.
senior side, they have the advantage or of having experience in both terms, solving complex problems, and also working with different teams or stakeholders, right? And both aspects are equally important.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, as you grow in your career, soft skills start mattering more. Like, that doesn't mean hard skills or the core tech skills don't matter, but actually how you work with stakeholders, how you communicate,
Mm-hmm.
those things are very important. So then you start looking for those in the like from the senior developers. Like, system design also comes into picture. Like, you can't really expect. I don't know if today, like, interview rounds for juniors also include system design, but unless you actually have some realistic practical experience, in my opinion, it is a little unfair, but it is what it is. But that's what you will expect from senior developers, right? Like, how they are not just thinking about building a system, but failure points, bottlenecks, scalability, all these things. Like, are they just using buzzwords, or do they actually know what they're talking about? And
Sure.
that comes mainly from experience, right? So that aspect, and then the behavioral part about how do they work with, or how do they behave in terms of when there are any conflicts, team conflict or conflict with the teams, how they work with the product managers, their managers. So all these things. So that's when they tell me about a time when you did XYZ, or when you had this kind of issue come up. So this is the high level structure of what we expect from both like junior and senior developers.
Okay, so you mentioned about behavioral and soft skills. So how do we, like, yet it surely comes with the experience, with like the more you work, the more soft skills and behavioral interview preparation you will be doing on the way. But then how would a fresher, or how would someone who has not experienced this much, how would that person be able to develop soft skills and leadership skills?
So leadership skills, I think that will come with experience. But
Mhm,
soft skills, of course, also will come with experience. But there is some additional preparation you can do,
mhm,
right? And soft skills is like a very large umbrella, right? There is no
mhm,
one course that you can, okay, take a soft skills course and kind of get better at it, right? But there are definitely some individual aspects, like
mhm,
specifically about communication, like written communication and verbal communication, how
mhm,
you speak. You're not expected to be like a TED Talk speaker,
mhm,
like immediately. Uh,
mhm,
and I don't know if that also a reasonable aspiration, but at least how you convey your points. Like, are
yeah.
you talking in circles? Like, are you actually communicating the most important points up front?
Mhm,
Are you giving the right context?
mhm,
If there is a pressure, like, how are you handling that? Are you being defensive?
mhm,
You can observe how other people do it and then
mhm,
try to incorporate that in your
mhm,
own methods. But ultimately, practice is one thing. So if you're never written design docs, if you're never written like emails conveying
mhm,
certain points, you should
mhm.
start doing that, right? That's
Okay.
definitely possible, because even junior developers or
Mhm,
people who are early in their career, they do have
mhm,
these opportunities where
mhm,
they have to present something in front of team. And
mhm,
even if nobody's asking them to do that, they could volunteer, right? They
mhm,
can have that much influence within their team to say that,
mhm,
hey, I think I know this topic well. I want to practice my communication skills or
mhm,
presentation skills. I
mhm.
want to give this presentation in front of team. No, nobody's gonna say no, right? Especially
Sure, sure.
if something is if the rest of the team members are also learning something from that. So you
Mhm,
should, it is better if you are given these opportunities, but you should not wait for such opportunities. You should be
mhm,
proactive in terms of doing that. And I
mhm,
think initially, at least observing would go a long way, right? Like, how your
mhm,
manager talks to product manager, like when there is any friction, like how do they kind of approach that?
mhm,
And then you try to incorporate that. Doesn't mean you have to put yourself in a conflict situation, but eventually somebody is gonna get into that situation for sure, right? like
Mm,
maybe it's on a code review, like you submit something and then the other person, the reviewer, does not agree. How do you handle that, right? And you
mm,
can start doing that practice intentionally.
mm,
So that is one aspect of soft skills. But then there are other things such as like time management, right?
yeah.
About like how are you taking on too much, like how you're saying no to
Mm,
additional responsibilities, or whatever that is. So all of these things we have to be mindful of. You have to
mm,
understand that these things matter a lot of time. Like especially when I talk about, I remember one tweet when I said how to say no to certain things, and people started talking about, oh, this is like bootlicking your manager and whatnot. That, I mean, it's your opinion. You can think whatever it is, right? But unless you notice or unless you realize that these things matter and these things are important, you won't work on that, right? So
yeah.
I think that is the first step, like knowing what things matter, knowing how to present your point of view, knowing
Mm,
how it is okay to disagree with someone, but at the same time be respectful.
mhm,
That becomes the first step. Then you take these additional. There are obviously resources on like the books like Smart Brevity, which is really good in terms of like concise communication.
mhm,
And then put yourself in these situations where you are actually trying to get out of your comfort zone and try something that
mhm,
is that you haven't tried before, but is actually useful.
mhm. Okay, okay, amazing. Again, like it's totally insightful. Let's talk about little about how someone would prepare a behavioral round in like big tech companies, because most of the big tech fan companies and other companies have the behavioral and leadership round. So how do a fresher prepare for that?
So first, like do Google search about like the common behavioral interview questions, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there are finite number of questions that
Mm-hmm.
anybody can ask. Tell me about a time when whatever you
Yeah.
were given additional responsibility, you had
Mm,
conflict with something, you were working under pressure, blah blah blah. So first understand like what is this problem space, like what kind of questions
mm,
people ask, and so it becomes a little easier for junior developers who are in the industry because now they have some practical situations where
mm,
they can talk more about similar to things. Little more difficult for students, but students can also think about what projects they have faced similar issues. Like
mm,
sometimes, like you worked on group projects, if you have some of your hackathon buddies, and then there might be some issues or something that you work together, hard deadlines and whatnot, right? But bottom line is, so understand the space and then try to map your most important examples to
mm,
these questions. So now people are not, interviewers are not expecting different project or different situation for every single question, right?
mm,
But if you have 5 or 6 projects or situation that you can talk about and you can somehow map them to, so if somebody talk about or ask about tight deadline, I'll talk about this project. If somebody
mm,
talk about very complex problem, I'll talk about this other
mm.
project. If somebody
Okay.
talked about going above and beyond, I'll talk about this other thing,
Mm,
right? So have this mental mapping
yeah.
one per se about, because you don't have time to talk about all of the projects,
Yeah.
and it is better if you do this mapping beforehand,
Mm,
because thinking on the spot and coming up with examples during interview needs time, right? And you
yeah.
have very finite time during the interview. So
Mm,
the more mapping and homework you do before the interview is better. So you know that, okay, if the question is about this, I'll talk about this one.
mm,
Then actually, even like the other step of homework or previous planning is write down some bullet points about
mm,
okay, what am I going to focus about this project?
mm,
Because again, your time is finite. You don't have time to talk about the entire history of the project, what you did, what others did, right? So
mhm.
key highlights. And in key
Yeah.
highlights, so usually people recommend like star or SBI format, right? Like
Mm,
situation, task, action, result. So what was the situation, what was your task, what action you took, and what was the result of it? Or
mhm,
SBI, like situation, behavior, impact. What was the situation? What was your behavior? And what was the impact of that?
mhm.
I also like to add actually something called bluff before that. And bluff stands
Okay.
for bottom line upfront, meaning
Mhm,
that they both star and SBI start with situation, right? And then there
mm,
is a sometimes risk of you talking too long about the situation, and the
mm.
interviewer is kept wondering, so what exactly are you going to talk about, or what was the key
Okay.
point of that, right? So if you start with bluff, meaning that you start with, I'm going to talk about this project where I did X, which was
Mm,
very complex because of Y, right?
mm,
And then you explain the situation. Why was the project like so complex, or why? What was the need of that, and
mhm,
whatever other relevant context, but not the
mm,
nothing too long. And
mhm,
then you talk about the specific action you took, right? This is
mm,
not the time to be super humble. Like you should not
mhm.
be bragging a lot too, but you should be focusing on your specific contribution, right? Because the interviewer is not hiring the team, interview is hiring
Yes.
you, right? So they are
True.
interested in knowing what you did. So
Mhm,
in that case, basically you have to focus on your specific achievement and
mhm,
the impact side, right? Like what did you achieve based on that? I
mhm,
think another thing which is common is a lot of time interviewers are looking for learnings, right? So sometimes they will intentionally ask for examples where it did not go as per plan or you did not succeed in your objectives.
Mhm.
It is okay to talk about that. Nobody's looking for perfection, right? Because realistically, like a lot of times you will fail.
Mhm.
But the key thing to remember, especially during interviews, is talk about learnings. Like first
Yes.
accepting that yes, it did
Mhm.
not go as per your plan, but
Mhm.
then what you learn from it, and even better if you have example of how you apply to the next situation, right? So
True.
that shows not just the learning, but that you're actually internalizing it and
Yep.
like recalling when the need arises later and then
Mhm.
applied over there.
Mhm.
So this is basically like the gist of it. Like, don't lie because interviewers will ask follow-up questions. So don't just randomly make up situations.
Mhm.
Uh, uh,
So is it fair to
Interviewers are
say, like,
generally smart enough.
is it fair to say I haven't come across any such situation, if like we haven't been in that situation, right?
Yes, it's totally fair to say. Like, it's better if you then kind of think about something other thing which is similar to that
Mhm.
and kind of share either
Sure.
common learning or kind of
Okay.
common thread
Mm.
and ask when in doubt, ask, right? Rather than
Right.
just say, oh, I don't have an example.
Yeah.
Like add a little more, saying that, but I had something similar which does not exactly address your question, but I think that has similar themes. Is it
Mhm.
okay to talk about that, right? And then leave it to the interviewer to say yes or no.
Okay, so you also mentioned this very important point about they are not just interested in listening to when things go well, but they also interested in knowing when it did not go well, and but what was the reason of failure and how did you cope up with it? How did you use that in your learning for future projects and so on? So I actually apply this particular technique in my videos. So in my recent videos, whenever I'm doing a hands-on video, let's say I'm doing a demo of a project creation using Terraform or Kubernetes or whatever, I don't really trim out the errors or issues that I face while implementing the project. Because again, like, I'm creating the videos keeping in mind that someone will watch this video and try to implement the project on their own. But if everything is working smoothly, there is no learning at all, right? So learning happens when things fail, when it breaks, when you do the troubleshooting, when you try to fix the issue, and when you actually fix the issue. Then you also have this mindset, and you keep that in your mind always, that yes, this was the issue that I faced, and this is how I fixed it, and this is how I have to fix it if I face the similar issue again. So this is the same situation, right? If I, like, interviewer is not interested in knowing how many project you have implemented by watching a video, right? He is
Right.
interesting to knowing how many projects have you broken, how many failures have you encountered, and it only happens when you do the actual hands on, when you do it by yourself. So this is the similar techniques, and again, like you mentioned, again, your soft skill plays an important role. When articulating your thoughts, you have to organize it well. You don't have to overspeak, or you don't have to divert from the topic that is going on. It happens a lot during interview. We get derailed from the actual question and we go somewhere else. So it's important to practice your soft skills and to organize your thoughts. Let's talk
Actually,
about. Sure.
sorry to interrupt. Like, you bring up a very good point. So people ramble. I actually have this problem even now, right? Like, I tend to ramble, especially when I get excited about some topic, tend to talk a lot more. Uh, when you catch yourself doing that, it is totally okay to take a couple of seconds pause,
Mhm.
right? And same thing for when you don't have immediate answer to the question. Like,
Mhm.
the interviewer is not expecting as soon as they end, you have to start exactly at that point, right?
Mhm.
So totally okay to take a couple of seconds and say that, hey, just give me a couple seconds to organize my thoughts, think about it, and then talk, right?
Mhm.
And it works in both conditions. When you don't have an immediate answer, like, okay to take a break, think about it. If you catch yourself rambling,
Mhm.
also take a break and say, I think, let me come back to the point, and then
Sure.
kind of stop yourself. But that's the key point. You have to notice and observe that you are actually talking too much or going in different directions that the interviewer
Yes.
is not expecting.
Yes, actually, I learned this. So there was a technical account manager, senior technical account manager at Amazon, Neeraj, and he was like a mentor to me. I haven't been in touch with him for quite long time, but a crucial thing that I learned from him is, because English is not my first language, right? So sometimes I make mistake, especially when I'm recording or doing the live conversation or in an interview. Sometimes, because when we speak too fast and we don't have time to organize our thoughts, it is we usually make mistakes. So he told me, like I told him, like I'm struggling with this. How do I cope up with this? So he told me what I do. I was in the similar shoes, and what I used to do, I used to put a sticky note in front of me, just below my monitor, which says "speak slow," and that's it. Whenever, because you make mistake whenever you're going too fast, you derail from the topic when you are going too fast or too excited about something, and you keep talking about it, right? And when you look at it, it sends a signal to your mind. Okay, just calm down, speak slow, organize your thoughts, and then come back again. So that's what I follow, like these days as well. Sometimes I forget that, but then when I look at my monitor, I remembered, yes, I have to, be in the present moment. So let's come back, let's organize the thoughts, and let's go ahead with it. So
That's
that's
awesome. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that tip as well.
yeah, yeah, that helps in the interview as well. Okay, so let's talk about one of the most common question that I get on my YouTube channel and over different posts on social media. So there is this fear of non-elite academic background, or we call it tier 3 academic syndrome. You know, does your college degree or your CGPA actually matters to get into a big tech?
The answer is it depends, right? Like most
Okay.
of the system design use cases. It definitely helps, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you see like names like IITs and BITS, you naturally have either a subconscious bias or because it's not easy to get into that, like you kind of know that this person at least have done a lot of preparation
Mm-hmm.
and tried really hard, worked hard. So that it talks about maybe sometimes their aptitude, at least their work ethic, right? Like they're really willing to work very hard. I don't think there is anybody who just like wakes up one day, gives JE, and then gets into IIT, right? Like that talks about
Yes. Mm-hmm.
preparation thing. So it gives that data point. They also have very strong network, right? If you talk to an IITian, like he or she would obviously prefer another IITian over some random person, right? Like at
Mm-hmm.
least subconsciously. So these things do matter. Like therefore, networking aspect, brand value, an aspect matter. GPA, same thing. A lot of companies use GPA as a filtering criteria, right? Because their resources are finite, right? Like they cannot just take every single resume and review it. So they can say that, okay, so in US we have 4 out of 4 GPA. They can say, okay, anything below 3.75, I'm not even going to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Same in India, if it is 10, like whatever filtering they may have, like 8, 9. So it does matter. But that does not mean that if you don't have that, like there is no chance of getting into this
Mm-hmm.
big tech.
Okay.
You will have to do something extra, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that something extra could mean anything. That could mean that going out of your way to build more data points, like proof of work, right? Ultimately, proof of work matters. Like people do know that people outside of these elite institutes or without such high GPAs, they also have caliber. They can also solve problem. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe like this, your degree doesn't define you.
Mm-hmm.
But then how do you prove that, right? Like, so proof
Mm-hmm.
of work becomes the additional burden. You have to make sure that you are taking steps, appropriate steps to kind of build that.
Mm-hmm.
Networking matters a lot. Like just you being good is not enough. People need to know
Mm-hmm.
that you're good, right? So you have to take extra efforts to network.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly value driven networking. We can talk about that later
Mm-hmm.
if you have time, right?
Sure.
So long story short, yes, CGPA and good college or
Mm-hmm.
good brand name college on a resume help a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but not having them does not mean that no, there is no way you can get into that. Like, I mean, I'm an example. As I was saying, my undergrad college was not that great, or
Mm-hmm.
at least not that well known when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I did manage to get into both Bloomberg and Amazon. And a lot of time luck also plays a role, but a lot of time your intentional efforts
Mm-hmm.
play a lot of role too.
Sure. I mean, yes, definitely. So it's basically, it's good to have, but not a must have. And if you have some extraordinary capabilities, if you have some good proof of work, that supersedes your college and your CGPAs, right?
Yeah, I would even say it's great to have, right? Like if you can actually get into
Yes.
such
Okay.
elite institute, or if you can actually, that's why I suggest like whenever people from like any college student talks to me, like focus on your GPA because that is
Mm.
you don't want to get filtered out even
Sure.
after having good skills, right? So you should definitely strive for that, but you should
Yes.
not lose hope if just because you're from
Hmm.
not known college or
Hmm.
you don't have a good GPA, and you'll have to work hard to kind of compensate for that.
Yes, because when we talk about tier 3 colleges, there are very limited companies that come for placement. If I talk about my college, again, I'm not sure what tier, what year it falls into, but it was not really good college. It was not really a well-known college. Uh, then like it was like I passed in 2012, and then in 2011 there were only few companies coming. Okay, so there was Accenture, Infosys, Cognizant. These three company came, I guess, which did the mass hiring. Rest were startups or mostly small scale companies. So these three companies had the criteria at that time of 65% overall percentage. So I would have been filtered out if I were not falling into that category of 60-65%, right? So I would have lost all these chances, that because I got selected into Accenture and Cognizant, but I would have been filtered out without any interview if I did not have at least 60%
At
in
least
my
65.
10th, 12th, and the graduation, right? So yes, definitely, I totally agree with you on this. Like it helps you at the very very basic layer of the when the filtration happen, because when a company comes, especially for the campus placement, they need to have some sort of filtration criteria. Or if they are doing a hiring drive, or if they are doing a mass hiring somewhere in an event, they have to have some sort of uh, filtering criteria at the very base layer. It could be your percentage, your 10th, 12th, your graduation, or your overall college, or it could be quantitative analysis, it could be logical reasoning, it could be something that they can do on a mass level, right? And usually the percentage comes at the very top. So yes, long story short, it does matter a lot of time, but if you don't have it or maintain it, doesn't mean you cannot do anything, right? Still you can work hard, still you can work on your proof of concept, do the hands on, and still you can go with the full force. Okay, so how do we make a resume stand out to get noticed?
So proof of work, I think, is
Proof
is
of
the
work, okay.
shortest answer, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
but proof of work means different things for different people.
Mhm.
And so for student, like, are we? Do you want to talk specifically about students or professionals, or
we
uh,
can we can talk
doesn't
about
matter?
anything.
Same
Yeah, we
thing.
can talk about maybe on a general level, like how would it work, because when we talk about professional, they already have a working experience, right? So they just need to articulate their thoughts in their resume, and basically that would be it, because they had that actual working experience. But when it comes to student or someone who's trying to get into tech from a non-tech background, uh, especially for those, how would they make your resume so that it gets noticed and it gets stand out?
Yeah, so I actually have this couple of articles on my blog post also, so you can link it later on. But I'll
Sure.
kind of summarize my thoughts right now. So
Mm,
mainly for college students, right? Like as we talked about, I think GPA is important. If you have like 10 out of 10 or 4 out of 4 GPA, that would definitely kind of stand out. So that is one thing, like
mm,
necessary but not sufficient kind of thing. On its own, it may not stand, but it'll be a very valuable addition.
mm,
Then this is not probably that relevant in India. I don't know if the things have changed right now, but at least when I was in an undergrad, like your curriculum was fixed. You had these courses here to take, and that's about it. But
mm,
that was not the case here when I was doing MS, right? You had some core courses that you have to take, and
mm,
later on you could take electives
mm,
to the in whatever area that you are interested in.
mm,
If that is the situation with your university, even in India, then take courses that matter,
mm,
meaning that don't just look for easy courses that are going to give you easy A's, but
mm,
something that will show either your interest or that is well known outside, at least, that okay, these are competitive courses. It is very
mm,
difficult to get an A or a really high grade. So
mm,
for in my times, there was like compiler construction, distributed systems,
mm,
systems programming, those kind of
mm,
things.
mm.
Uh, this is a very specific example. Like I
Sure.
don't mean to say that take these courses, right? This was
Mm.
applicable to me
Yeah.
when I was preparing for Bloomberg. So that's why I'm giving this example. But you find out if you have electives, like what
Mm,
courses you take.
mm,
Then other thing is hackathons, right? I think in colleges, your college has a hackathon culture that great, like participate in that. It helps in at least two ways, right? Like one is building that proof of work that, hey, you worked on this project, like, or
mm,
you at least started this idea.
mm,
And then second, networking, right? Like if you are working with like-minded students, then
mm,
you're more kind of more likely to keep on building, more likely to kind of
Mm,
stay in the company which is
mm.
supporting you, rather than kind of just leave it like, who cares about college, just do time pass kind of thing, right?
Sure.
So and then hackathons are usually just short, like a day or two kind of thing. So it's probably not realistic to build full-fledged project, but then you can take that idea and then work on it in your spare time to then
Mm,
make it a project that you can then put on the resume, saying that, hey,
mm,
it helps in both ways, right? It shows you participated in hackathons, and then it
mm,
also shows that you actually took it a step further. You didn't
mm,
stop at the end
mm,
of hackathon, but you
mm,
actually took that concept and make it into fruition.
mm,
Similar with coding competitions, right? There
mm,
you cannot make a project out of coding competition, but if you participate in coding competitions, it also helps in multiple ways. Interview preparation, like a lot of coding competitions are like, even if the problems are not going to be exactly same, the structure
mm,
is similar. You are
mm,
supposed to solve a problem in a finite amount of time
mm,
by applying similar DSA concepts, right? So it gives you practice, helps
mm,
you with networking. If you're doing really well over there, then that can build your, like, at least the local college network.
mm,
Again, not sure if it is applicable in India, but over here, when I was in Bloomberg, we used to go to uh, the college where I graduated from here, Binghamton University, and
mm.
sponsor coding competitions.
Okay.
So people who did really well, that doesn't
Mm,
mean you have to top, right? But at least people who were in top five got automatic interview call,
mm,
irrespective of how bad their resume looked like, right? So
mm.
this is another way of,
Okay.
again, like, may not be applicable everywhere, but
Mm.
you have to kind of assess, like,
Sure.
is this feasible for you? Is
Mm,
this gonna help? And
mm,
if nothing else, at least you get practice, right? So coding competition become another thing. If somebody's research oriented, then publishing
mm,
papers,
mm,
like showcasing your
mm,
research work
mm,
publicly. I think this build in public has a little bit probably lack of clarity. I would say, I don't know, like,
mm,
it's not enough to just say, oh, you're learning this, you're learning this, you're learning this, or you're
mm,
building this, right?
mm,
What you learned from this, what is the application of that, right? Sharing your learnings, sharing the challenges, how you overcame those challenges, what was
mm.
the impact of whatever you built. I think
Yep.
that is more important. So we have to kind of focus on that and not just post Scrum stand up like daily updates. Oh, I did this today, did this today, kind
Mm,
of thing. So
mm,
these are, and oh, sorry, professors. I think professors is very important. Not so much for the resume aspect,
mm,
but talking to professors can give you more insights into what like connect you with their alumni, and then you can then get more insight into what matters more on the resume, or if you're applying for that company, what
mm,
kind of things you should focus on, things like that. So these are some ways I think would be helpful for students to kind of incorporate in the resume. Long story short, GPA, coursework, coding competition experience, hackathons, and whatever side projects you build out of hackathons. These everything on its own may not be sufficient, but I think
mm,
and every you don't also have to do everything, but at
mm,
least like pick and choose a couple of them that you think you can sustainably do and do really well, and then
mm.
put that in the and then what you write on the resume also matters,
Yep.
not just the format and the
Mm.
what's that thing?
ATS score.
What is the score? ATS score. Yeah. So I mean, don't focus so much on that, but the content, right? Like, do you actually have substance in your resume? And this, like, Google, if you just Google about XYZ format, right? Achieve this by doing Y as measured by Z.
Mm,
So highlighting the impact, highlighting specific learnings, complexities.
mm,
Your software engineer's resume should not look like a product manager's resume, right? Like,
mm,
yeah, achieved like whatever X revenue growth and whatnot. Like, people want to see what complex or technical thing you solved, or you learned. So make
mm.
sure that you add something with related technical complexities also.
Yep. I mean, you have answered a lot of my further questions in one single answer. And okay, that's amazing to know all the points that you have mentioned. So this solves how do you network as a student, how do you make industry grade projects, and basically you need to just think about the next level. Right, this is also what I suggest for my viewers, especially because when we talk about DevOps and cloud space, there is nothing much, I would say, or there is not a lot we can do to create our portfolio or to build projects. Like for a full stack developer, you can create web applications, you can actually host it live, and you can showcase it live on your resume and to the interviewer. But when it comes to cloud and DevOps, because the focus is not on the application development, focus is the maintainability, the reliability, and the operational aspect of the application. It's hard to show that on a resume. So but then we have a lot of tools and technologies that we can use to build the projects, like we have Terraform, Kubernetes, CI/CD pipelines and whatnot. But then it's not really sufficient, or it's not enough to just watch a 2 hour long video and showcase that in your resume. It won't be enough. And this is what I suggest to everyone, like if it can be done in few hours, it should not go on your resume. Think about the next level, what else you can add on top of it. Because if let's say if there is a video with 100K views and like 100K people have watched it, let's say even 10,000 people have implemented it, so it does not make you stand out. And it's not even a complex project if it was done in just a couple of hours. So you need to think about next level, what else you can add on top of it, how you can make it a production grade or an industry grade project. So that's a lot of information that we've got about, interview, resume, and so many other things. Let's talk a little more about interview process of a typical software engineering interview at Google.
Before that, I think because it is probably going to be relevant and helpful, can we talk a little bit about networking? I touched upon some things, but
Sure.
especially since you're saying that in the DevOps space, it is more difficult to kind of add complex projects and make your
Mm,
resume stand out, right?
mm.
I talked a little bit about what students can do to network, but there are a couple
Sure.
additional things also that I think are important that people can try. So if you don't
Yeah,
mind, can we talk a
we
little
we
bit
would love to
about
hear
that?
that. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think key thing to remember about networking, it needs to be value driven, right? Like just
Mhm,
knowing somebody is not enough, but what value you bring to the table and how you're kind of helping out.
mm,
And what does that mean? Like you either in social media in terms of your platform of preference or even groups like Discord groups, right?
mhm,
You can showcase your expertise and you
mhm,
can actually help solving problems of the others. That way you are looked up at as like an expert in that particular space, or somebody that he or she has a lot of these answers, right?
mm,
So when you do that, naturally either whoever the admin or the owner of those groups, they are generally not also freshers, right?
mm,
Or if they're not freshers, if they take notice when
mm,
they have this particular need that, hey, like, I'm looking for this XYZ person, who is going to come to their mind first, like these 500 students who are already in the Discord, or that one person who is answering most of the questions and showcasing their expertise, right? So remember that like you have to bring something to the table for people to notice you, right?
mm,
And it's easier said than done. Again, I'm not kind of simplifying this thing, like especially if you want to impress, how do you impress 1,000 people, right? You can't
mm,
really go and do 1,000 things for 1,000 different people, but at least like in that particular group, what value you're bringing to the table, like what problems you're solving, how you're helping others, that matters a lot.
mm,
Also, another thing that we used to have in US, or I mean still do, is companies go on campus for information sessions, right,
mhm,
where they talk about what they do to attract students. Like that is a great also occasion or venue
mm,
to network with the company representatives. You can
mhm,
talk to them about what you have done, why you could be a good fit, and be
mhm,
memorable for some proper reasons, right? Like meaning again, like talking about some specific problems that is relevant to the company or whatever
mm,
they're looking for. And I think long story short, be visible, and be
mhm.
visible in a good way, like
Yeah.
by providing value and trying whatever you can in a focused manner, because you
Mm,
can't be everywhere. You're not omnipresent, right? Like everywhere
mm,
at all the time. So
mm,
pick what matters to you, pick that particular audience,
mhm.
and then and help out without expecting like a transactional kind of thing.
Yeah, that's an important point, because I also, like, I don't have a really a big company or something. I just have a YouTube channel and few other side projects that I have been working on. But then I also hired a couple of folks from my Discord server who were really active, who were adding value to the server, who were adding value to the community. I hired them, and now they are helping me out with a lot of research work, with a lot of my content strategy, and helping me create content that matters most. And that's actually a really good point, value driven networking. And I'm sure everyone who's listening this video would apply this and would take the most out of it, because it's not just what you can get from someone, it's just what value you can bring to the table, what you can give to the community, instead of talking about what you can take from the other person. So okay, let's talk about the interview process of a software engineering candidate at Google. How's the typical process looks like?
So typically there are like three phases, like
Mm-hmm.
online assessment, phone interview, and then the full loop.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, online assessments, like typically DSA like problems,
Okay.
not DSA like problems, like problem that involves solving that with data structures and algorithms, automated, mostly automated thing.
Mm-hmm.
Phone interview, it's a mix of both. Like sometimes they'll ask you like a simple or medium kind of uh, coding problem,
Mm-hmm.
and then other questions about could be there's no fixed thing that, oh, you have to follow this. So some may ask you about your previous experience, some may ask about some specific technical knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
and then if you clear all these, then you are invited to like full loop. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
won't call it on-site yet. Like sometimes it still could be virtual, but basically full loops. For
Mm-hmm.
junior developers,
Mm-hmm.
it mostly focuses on coding and behavioral.
Mm-hmm.
3 to 4 coding rounds and at least one behavioral round.
Mm-hmm.
And then for people with little more experience, like 3 years plus, you can also have system design round, and then there could be little more emphasis on behavioral interviews. But this is the standard format for big tech. I'll just like to add one point though. It is important to do your homework and
Mm-hmm.
understand what the interview format is going to look like and what are they going to focus on,
Mm-hmm.
because what I just described is mostly applicable to like Amazon, Google, Meta kind of things,
Mm-hmm.
but that is not the end of the world, right? Like you
Yeah.
have so many other companies that people can apply to.
Sure.
You cannot apply the same template over there. So do your homework, understand what they expect. Like I'll
Mm-hmm.
just give you one brief example. Like finance related companies, like big banks or healthcare, they may expect more language oriented expertise or questions, right? Like going a little more deeper into nitty-gritties of C++, Java, whatever language they're
Mm-hmm.
using. That is not the case in big tech.
Mm-hmm.
They are more interested in problem solving, data structures, algorithm, one kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. Language, they don't care. Like you implement it whatever language you want, and there might be just one or two questions here and there during the phone interview or the actual insight about the language, like why this particular feature you're using while solving the problem or this language. Not so much about, okay, explain me thread pooling in Java and whatnot kind of thing. But
Mm-hmm.
that could be in other healthcare banks and
Mm-hmm.
whoever kind of needs that. So know your audience is the main thing, right? Like understand what is the expectation
Sure.
and then prepare
Mm-hmm.
accordingly. But what I described earlier is the standard process for big
Okay.
tech.
Okay, got it. Okay. So you mentioned about, initial screening round as DSA, and there could be system design based on your level of experience. It could be for junior developers, and it's definitely there for the senior developers. So how does someone prepare for system design and DSA? Like a typical learning roadmap, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, roadmap. Yeah, so the basic thing is you really have to have solid understanding of fundamental concepts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there are no two ways around that. You cannot just solve 200 lead code problems and feel that, oh, you're prepared, or even 500 for that matter. You
Mm-hmm.
need to understand the at least the basic data structures,
Mm-hmm.
their pros and cons. There is no silver bullet, right? Like you cannot always use hash table for lookups just
Mm-hmm.
because it has O of one complexity, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it also has some cons, and so in which cases what you should do. What are these, again, same thing with algorithms, like sorting itself has multiple things because there are pros and cons and right use cases for the right problems, so sorry, for the right algorithms. So
Mm-hmm.
understanding that is critical. Same thing with system design, right? Like understanding the basic concepts about, okay, horizontal scaling and database sharding and whatnot is good. It's really important. But then beyond that, how you apply it to the problem is what
Sure.
is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
That comes with practice. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously you have to solve DSA problems, but that doesn't mean that like rote learning thing, like you just solve 200 problems and you're done. Like
Mm-hmm.
there is no magic formula.
Sure.
The lead code has what now, like 5,000, at least 3,000 ish problem. Like it's impractical that you will solve all of those, right? So that's why these understanding the fundamentals really well is very important. And then try to see that, okay, like how do you approach a problem when you have not seen that problem before?
Mm-hmm.
Because realistically, you're not going to remember, even if you solve 3,000 problems, you're not going to remember all of
Yeah.
them during the interview, right? So trying it not from, okay, I solved this problem this way, but okay, reflecting on what
Mm-hmm.
worked, what did not work, what approach was useful, why it was useful, and
Mm-hmm.
how I can apply this to other cases,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you're solving a bunch of problem, is there any common theme in how you are kind of doing that, where you're struggling? And then brainstorming with others also. Like sometimes you may not get the answer, but talking to others, not about what is the solution to this problem, but
Mm-hmm.
how did you solve this problem, or
Mm-hmm.
what am I lacking when I'm thinking about it in this way? So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of reflection, a lot of practice. System design goes a little beyond that, meaning you can't really build systems on the fly, right?
Mm,
Like, so you have to understand these core components, like think of them as Lego pieces, right? Like you
mm,
build a system with these different Lego pieces, but then again, knowing which piece is applicable where, what
mm,
are the, like, how do you think about bottlenecks? How do you think about scalability? And then how do you kind of connect these things together to solve a problem? There
mhm,
is sometimes you might get lucky and you'll get the off the shelf question like, okay, design Instagram feed and whatnot. But especially Google is kind of well known for n- coming up with questions that are not publicly available, right? Both in coding and system design. So that's where you really have to kind of apply this muscle of, I have not done this before. How would I do that? And what
mm,
fundamental knowledge I can use to kind of piece these things together and build the
mm.
system that they're asking for, or even solve a problem that is in question.
That's really well put, and this is a different perspective, different than what we actually listen or hear on social media. Because not a lot of people share this advice, and not a lot of people would like this, but this is the reality, and this is how we should prepare. If I were to summarize, yes, I mean, doing the practice, DSA practice, is important, but what more important is to understand the fundamentals behind it. What more important is, how do you put different pieces together, and especially case studies and white papers, that comes really handy when preparing for system design specifically, because you understand the problem on a large scale, and how other companies have implemented or solve a problem using those concepts. So that's really a good perspective, and that's really good a way of learning system design and DSA.
Yeah,
um
I'll just like to add one thing. Sorry about that.
mhm.
So practice is inherently different than the interview, right? Like in practice, you're on your own. But
Yes.
one kind of advantage you have during the
Mhm.
interview is having the interviewer with you. And what that means is that if you think out loud, if you're
Mhm.
stuck while
Mhm.
practicing a problem, you are stuck, right? Like
Mhm.
you either you think and then you look up a solution, right? But
Mhm.
during the interview is not expecting you, at least generally, to solve
Mhm.
everything without talking to the interviewer at all, right?
Mhm.
So you have somebody that you could actually brainstorm with. As long
Mhm.
as you explain your thought process, as long as you kind of explain the why you're taking this approach and then where you are stuck,
Mhm.
interviewer can give you hints, and one or two hints are not going to be counted against you. Like if the interviewer helps you solve the whole problem, then yeah, that doesn't work. But the point is, like, you have somebody that you could kind of at least exchange couple of ideas and unstuck you, right? So you don't have to feel that, unless I'm able to solve 100% of the problem, I'm not ready for the interview. That is not the case, right? Even if you
Mhm.
can do that 70-80% of the problems, you can potentially solve other like problem during interview with the help
Mhm.
of interviewer.
Your Twitter handle VJ Insight totally justify what you bring to the table. You provide a lot of
Thank you.
insights to each and every question. You not just cover the question, you cover everything around it. So it's totally insightful. And we
Thank you.
are
Thank you.
almost at 1 hour mark, but I wish
Oh,
this
wow.
podcast
Thank
would
you.
never end. But we have a few more questions to go ahead with, and if time permits, if you have time, then
Okay.
we can.
I have time. I can talk here.
Okay, awesome. So let's answer and let's talk about the elephant in the room, AI. What do you think is the current impact of AI on software engineering jobs? And like most of the people ask this question, why do we learn coding if everything has to be done with AI? What's the point of learning it?
So I'll answer that question first. And again, this is my opinion.
True.
I do not claim to be an expert in AI at
Mm,
all, right? So take
mm,
it whatever it's worth.
yeah.
Some random guy opinion on the internet. Uh, I feel that okay, you have these extremely powerful tools which are building like full stack applications for you, which is great. But
Mm,
what do you do when they don't work as expected, right?
mm,
Like if you have a problem, like yes, you can ask, keep on prompting, saying that, oh, not working, not working.
mm,
I have this problem, I have that problem.
mm,
You have to at least at some point you have to see how much time you need to spend in doing that iteration by prompting versus just looking at the code and then
yes.
fixing it yourself, right?
Yes.
There's some situations where it'll be easy to, okay,
Mm,
tools are smart, you give specific problem that you're experiencing and they'll fix
mm,
it, but you can't rely on that,
yes.
right? Like if you know, again, going back to the fundamental thing, right? Like if the LLM is not able to solve that particular problem or introduces bug, you're stuck if you don't
Mm,
know coding or if you don't know
yes.
fundamentals, right? So
Yes.
that's why I think it is important to at least know, you take somebody's help to do stuff, but then you, what is that phrase, trust but verify, right? Like, so you trust that LLM is going to do everything, but you kind of have to verify a few things, right? Like security wise, is there anything, are there any gaps? Or are you just taking, you prompted that make sure the application is secure and LLM is doing that. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, right? But you have to kind of at least know what things are required for that. Or in terms of like bugs, as I said, right? Like how long do you keep prompting the LLM, or when do you just go and fix it? But if you have no knowledge, like you can't even go and fix it, right?
Sure.
So I think for that, I think it's really helpful if you have the good understanding of the space. You can leverage it in a more productive way, right? Then it's going to help you become a lot more productive, and you can use it more wisely. That's my opinion.
Yes,
Now,
definitely.
what
And
was the first part of the? Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was just mentioning, like, we hear these stories, nowadays very frequently. Like, uh, some company has exposed a lot of users' confidential data, or they have exposed their APIs keys publicly over the internet. And recently, some AI agent wiped out the entire company's database and fabricated the data with some dummy information. So how would we, and then how would we make sure that we fix that problem, or that problem shouldn't even exist in the first place, if we would have more understanding of what we are doing without relying much on AI agents, on LLMs. So that's important to know. Again, fundamentals, like you mentioned, it plays an important role. You should know what you are doing. It's more of a helper, more of an assistant, rather than a developer or a software engineer. Is it fair to say that?
Yeah, at least as of now, right? Like
As of
maybe it'll
now, yes.
change in
Yeah,
some time, but
things
at least as
might
of now,
change.
that's
Yeah,
that's the case.
true. Okay, so the first part was, what is the impact of AI on software engineering jobs?
Yeah, it's honestly kind of difficult to say like with a lot of confidence, right? Like it
Mhm,
is, it's definitely gonna have an impact. That is one one person can easily say. The more you know, the more you are familiar with the tools, it's gonna make you more productive, right?
mhm,
But does that mean that all the jobs are gonna go away? Like I personally don't think so, right? Like so, as we are discussing, somebody needs to still operate these LLMs, and somebody needs to still like debug and make sure that guardrails are in place, etc.
mhm,
So it will have some impact. I cannot say with any confidence that okay, this is going to be the impact like right now,
mhm,
right? It is a tool, like it's just evolution. Like I think that's one thing about technology, like double-edged sword, like evolves so quickly that you have to keep up to date all the time. But then it also enables you to do more things in shorter
mhm.
time, right?
Yep.
Like maybe not apples to apples comparison, but imagine like early days of JavaScript, right? Like plain JavaScript, people knew and did, and then there were so many frameworks that helped them do a lot more with lot less. Like all the boilerplating was already done, but that doesn't make web developers obsolete, right? Like maybe not exactly apples to apples, but same thing. I
Mhm,
feel that the AI tools are gonna make you a lot more productive. You might be expected to deliver a lot more in a much
mhm,
shorter time frame.
mhm, mhm.
But it's probably a far-fetched to say that all the jobs are going to go away and only product managers or company founders will use AI to just build everything, at least in the near few years. I could be wrong. Who knows?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. And what do you think are the most important skills we should focus on to have a AI proof career, or at least for next few years? What should we focus on?
Yeah, I don't know if I will use the AI proof as a word. Like nothing is foolproof, right?
Yeah.
Over here, like things change. People will, I mean, companies will keep laying off people for one reason or the other.
Mm,
But at the same time, your point is valid, right? You have to make sure that you are at least you have good understanding of the
mm,
space. That
mm,
doesn't mean that everybody needs to be machine learning engineer, right?
mhm,
So, let's take a step back and see. Like at least the way I look at this AI space is kind of three big buckets, right? One is the core algorithms, like actually building LLMs or improving LLMs in terms of efficiency, quality, accuracy,
mm,
and whatnot.
mhm,
I think there's a very small percentage of people who do that or who needs to do that. Like it's a very core understanding of mathematics and machine learning is required, and not everybody is willing to or capable of doing that, which is totally okay, right? Like not everybody has to have all skills or every single skill
true.
that matters.
Yeah.
It's a small subset, in my opinion. Then the on the right extreme is just like using the AI space to do your daily tasks, right? Like
Mhm,
could be trip planning or could be refining documents or creating emails, creating templates. also important, like not downplaying the impact, because that can help you more productive in
Yeah.
these other tasks. And
Mhm.
then in the middle, it is using LLMs to build applications, right? So
Yes.
that's where like it's more like software programming, in my opinion, right? Like, but of
Mhm.
course, it has this additional angle of uncertainty. Like LLM may not always respond with the exact same output, and how do you do that? How do you kind of make it structured? How do you make it more deterministic?
Mhm.
How do you manage cost? Right, cost is going to be super important. Like uh, every back and forth with LLM, like, depending on the number of tokens and whatnot. So, but so this space is much wider, in my opinion, right?
Mhm.
Like, and
Yeah.
then at least having good understanding of what does it mean, how do you evaluate trade-offs, what tools you have at disposal,
Mhm.
uh, and then how do you actually then code, like how do you like whatever langchain, langgraph, whatever. I mean, the
Mhm.
frameworks also might just keep evolving, just like anything else, but how do you leverage that to then
Mhm.
actually code and build some application? uh, you should see which one you want to kind of focus on, and at least have good understanding of the space that you want to
Mhm.
maybe either build your career in, or in your words, like make it AI
Sure.
proof.
Sure, that's a great perspective. That's a good way to know that. And yes, I totally agree with you on this point as well. Like, there could be some jobs that will be obsolete, that has been obsolete already, and there will be some jobs that will be obsolete in the near future. But then there are so many new jobs that are evolving, right? Like people
Yep.
building applications using LLMs, or they are using uh, let's take a small example. Like I have hired a couple of folks earlier who helped me automating my some regular tasks, some workflow using N10 and the lang graphs, right? So these are the some of the latest tools and technologies that we can leverage to make our life easy, right? And then understanding of these tools and how it works and how to make best use of it, it is important for to be ready for the AI era that we are living in, or that what's coming in the future. So yeah, it's I would say it's a high time that we become AI aware. At least whatever we can use or whatever we can learn, it's important for the future. Let's take another turn for this podcast. Now we talked a lot about engineering, we talked about job interviews and preparation and whatnot. Now let's talk a little about referral as well. So how the referral process works in a big tech company or in any company for that matter.
I think it varies a lot. Even in big tech, it varies a lot. Like
Okay, let's
just
talk
giving a
about the
referral to
big. Let's
somebody.
focus only on the big techs now.
Okay, so at least in my experience, providing a referral to a random position
Mhm.
has zero impact.
Zero
Like I
impact.
have referred so many candidates
Mhm.
that I personally knew. Like I'm probably notorious also on Twitter about not providing referrals to people I have not worked with, because to me, like it is, you are vouching for that person unless you know, like why would you do that, right?
And we
So,
had a discussion about it as well. I'm
right,
gonna,
right.
yeah.
Exactly. So, but even people who I worked with, who I actually feel that are really good candidates, that
Mm,
are like going to be a good addition to here, like
mm,
nothing happened after my referral, right? So I think it's like a black hole. You just throw something in it.
mm,
But at the same time, if you know somebody in that particular group, meaning that I know this hiring manager who
mm,
is hiring for whatever position, or I know
mm,
this particular recruiter,
mm,
that would play a huge role. So it is a kind of combination of networking and referral, right?
mm,
If you actually talk to these people and say, "Hey, I really I have this person who I feel that gonna be really good for your team,"
mm,
they would honor my word, and then they would interview that person,
mm.
right? Doesn't mean they will get a job, but at least it
Yep.
increases your chances significantly. So referrals do play a role, but
Mhm,
it's not just you blindly referring somebody and then they're gonna be on top of the pile like that. At least in my experience, that has not been the case in big tech.
mhm,
In the small medium firm, I think referral play a lot more role, because
mm,
their even pool of candidates is
mm,
much smaller probably
mm,
than the big tech. So
mm.
don't rely on the referral. Like rely more on networking is what I would say.
So having no referral is equal to no chance of getting into big tech. That's absolutely a myth.
Yeah, that's
Referral
not
doesn't guarantee you a job, and not having referral doesn't mean you cannot get into that company.
correct.
It's not an entry barrier, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, this is the question that I have been asked a lot of time, and this is something that I'm actually tired explaining it to everyone. So I thought of covering this in this podcast so that we hear your perspective as well, right? We had a thread in Twitter in which everyone shared this perspective, and everyone from the industry was in the same shoes, right? We had the similar mindset, like we don't refer someone to whom we have never worked with before, or we cannot vouch for their skills and their professional etiquettes, right? So like referring random people from Twitter, from LinkedIn, it doesn't do anything good, not to us, not to the company, not to the person that we are referring to. And I have seen people, sharing a Google Doc on LinkedIn or Twitter. Okay, my company is hiring. If anyone wants a referral, just apply to this. That's what do we call it? I mean, is it even ethical, or is it even legal? Should we even entertain these things? I mean, if we keep doing that, what is the point of a referral? Then referral will have no value in the future if everyone is, doing a bulk upload of referral through a Google Doc.
I think you have hit on a key point, right? Like I don't think it is anything illegal. Uh,
Mhm.
Ethical is a gray area, right? If the company doesn't care, like yeah, maybe it is okay. But the what is the value in that case, right, of referral? The real value of referral would be that, okay, why should I give your opinion more weight than looking at some random resume? It's like because
Sure.
you are actually vouching for their skill set. You are actually
Yes.
you have more insight into that person than just what the resume says.
Mhm.
If I do that for everybody, then why would anybody value my opinion at all, right? And in
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
case, again, it
Mhm.
is not just about my opinion. Right? I'm not doing it because people need to value my opinion, right?
Mhm.
But if everybody does the same thing, then
Mhm.
basically everybody is in the same boat, right?
Mhm.
So it's not going to help even the person who is asking the referral, right? So
Mhm.
it is not selfishly, at least in my opinion, I'm saying that no, I need to protect my word or my
Mhm.
image. That's why I'm not going to give a referral. But
Mhm.
it is there's definitely a little bit of that because I don't want people to say that, oh, Vinit just gives a referral to random people. I'm not going to take his word. Then person who is actually genuinely deserves or needs help, I won't be able to help that person, right? So
True.
it's more about that. And then it's this bigger effect, right? If everybody uploads like these forms and then actually even asking money for that, that that I think, in my opinion, is not good. I'll just share a small experience. Somebody actually tried to schedule a top mate slot with me.
Mhm.
And what I usually ask them to do is at least provide a couple of lines of description of what can I help, so that I don't want to kind of have the call and then say, "Oh, sorry, I can't help you," right? Like that then providing these refunds and whatnot. I don't know how that works. But so somebody said that, "Oh, I'm in a team matching stage of Google, so wanted your thoughts on that." I'm like, "Sorry, dude. Like I can't do that. Like that is unethical in my opinion.
Yes.
That
Yes.
somebody already got accepted in Google and now I'm charging them to kind of either have a place either in my team or some other team. That's
Mhm.
where I draw the line about ethical. It that might be illegal also, but at least
Mhm.
I don't think that should do that. Like, but you're just giving referral to random people, and if your company doesn't care, like I think that's okay. Like, it's just not gonna be useful to anybody.
But I believe every company, no matter the scale that they are operating with, every company would have a field when you are giving someone a referral. Every company would have a field which says, how do you know that person? Right.
Yes,
So, what do we mention over there?
we
Twitter random
yeah,
or.
right. And we have that in Google, right? Like we have to
Yeah.
give some justification and evidence, which makes
Yes.
things more complicated. And you're right, yeah. Like, then you will have to lie, right? In that
Yeah.
case,
Yeah.
why would you put yourself in that position for somebody that you have not worked with?
True.
I don't
Yeah.
think that's
And
fair to
and
even
and
expect.
there are companies that they are operating these days, and those are providing referral for a fee, like, referral as a service. This is a new thing that's been going on. I believe we had bigger problems to solve as a company, rather than providing referral to random people and charging a fee for it. Like,
I don't,
it's
yeah, I don't
it's a
support
weird
that
world
kind
that
of
we
model
live
for
in.
sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about, okay, we talked about referral, we talk about interview preparation. Let's say we got the offer, we get into the final round of the interviews, we are having this HR discussions with packages, salary negotiation. How, in your opinion, is the best way to do the salary negotiation?
I actually wrote a Twitter thread on that, so I'll send you a link after that. You can
Okay.
also,
Sure.
I may not be able to recall everything over that, so I think that is like reasonably comprehensive, so that will be
Mhm.
helpful to people. But I
Mhm.
think bottom line is you should do that between the offer and accepting it. Don't accept and then negotiate. Like that doesn't look good, right?
Mhm.
And then so what are some of the steps? Like you should do research on what is that position paying. And I think based on at least my anecdotal evidence that I've seen, and I think it varies across countries. So India is different and US is different, right? In India, apparently they ask for your previous salary, which I don't think is fair.
Yeah.
If they have to do that, then I don't have any answer to that. But
Mm,
you should ideally you should look for like what is this position or what is the average or the range of the salary for
mm,
this particular position for this
mm,
experience, this skill set, etc., and
mm,
then have some number in your mind, like
mm,
irrespective of what you're making before.
mm, mm,
It's totally unfair to say, oh, you're only making 3 now, why are you expecting 24? Like, why do you care? Like, what value you bring to the table and how much you're willing to pay for that,
mm,
what should matter. uh, so do your research about the range, have some number in mind, and don't keep on varying that number. And
mm,
then preferably let them come up with the first number. Like you don't say, oh, I want on this much. Like you ask, what is the offer? And then if that is not matching, if that's matching, then great. Like, but we're
mm.
talking about negotiation. So assuming that
Yeah.
that doesn't match, then you be polite but still firm about, hey, I
Mm,
believe that my
mm,
skill set is really helpful for solving these problems in your company. I've
mm,
also seen that, okay, this particular position is paying
mm,
in this particular range, so I was expecting that if you could meet this particular number.
mm,
And then basically take it from there. If they say no, absolutely no, then it's you have to decide whether you take their number or not. Generally they don't say flat out no. Generally they go back and forth. uh, I think being polite and value proposition and kind of showing, oh yes, you are interested in the company, you're interested in working out a particular number, and don't nickel and dime. So let's say if you had number of I believe your audience is mostly Indian, right? So I'm talking about the LPA
mm.
kind of term. So 30
Yeah.
LPA is what you have. But if the company is offering 28, like is that 12 really going to make huge difference?
Mm,
I don't know. That's up to you to decide.
mm,
But just because the company is offering a little bit less or you want just a little bit more, like it's probably not worth it in just keep on going back and forth about no, but this, what about that, what about that.
mm,
So uh, use your judgment. Don't look like a fool is what I would recommend, because you don't want to burn bridges. Even if that doesn't work out, if you have
mm,
a good impression on the recruiter and the company, things may work out in the future. So
mm,
try not to burn bridges. And lastly, also don't look at the absolute salary number, right? Like there could be
mm,
other components
mm,
to it, other benefits,
mm,
what the company offers, and does that kind of compensate for lack of
yep.
meeting your expected number, etc. So take a holistic view. Don't just
Mm,
focus only on one number, either base
mm,
salary or even total comp,
yeah.
right? Look at other benefits as well.
Yeah, we can negotiate on shares, equity, and we can negotiate on joining bonus and all other components as well, right? So actually that's what I did when I was joining Google. I did not do much negotiation on the base salary, but I focused more on the equity and other components. And they have a little bit of extra room on those components rather than the
Right.
base component. So
Oh, another key point. If you
mm,
have competing offers, that really helps.
yeah,
Right.
okay.
So try to get more offers then and then use that for leverage. Don't lie. Maybe if you
Mm,
get caught, I think it's not gonna look good. But if you have actual real competing offers, I think that could play a
sure.
significant role or advantage.
Yeah, that's another difference between hiring system between India and other Western countries. Like in India, notice period is usually 3 months. So you have a lot of time to apply for other companies to get some competing offers, and then you can do the negotiation based on those offers. But in North America, I believe in US also it's 15 days. In Canada, it is 15 days. I'm not
Weeks,
sure.
yeah.
So what I was saying is we don't have a lot of time to brag to get the multiple offers. I don't know how you managed to got 5 offers. That's in my point of view, it's an achievement. Like in that short period, or even if you had some extra time, but it was really an amazing achievement, and that too from these big companies, big names. Uh, it's great.
Thank
It's
you.
great to know that. And okay, let's okay, and also okay. I just also wanted to add one more thing. So over here, let's talk about how do we negotiate based on our current package. Let's say there is a company in India who's asking our previous salary slip, and based on that, they are proposing you, let's say, 30% increment or 40% increment. How would we justify the X amount of package that we are expecting?
It's not an informed opinion because I worked literally for like 16 months in India. So I'm very detached from the Indian hiring processes and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. But I think the main point becomes, why does my current package matter?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, that, you shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you are applying for a position which is
Mm.
expected to pay this based on the value you bring to the
Yeah.
company. So
Yeah.
if company is benefiting from my expertise, and if the other companies are paying similar, that's why I'm expecting this thing. That's the gist of it. Of course,
Mm.
you have to be nice about that. But I don't know how to like how open Indian companies are in
Mm.
respecting this point of view. But that's
But yeah,
how
at
I would
least
like
we should try from
phrase.
our side, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so we should put more focus on what we can bring to the table, our experience and our skills, rather than what I'm currently making, right?
Right. And what other people in the similar position, similar experience are making also,
Sure,
right?
the
It's
market
a supply
rate.
and demand thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little about interns. What is the interview process for an intern at Google, and how it is different from a full time role?
Think process is probably similar. I actually don't know. I have not
Okay.
interviewed any interns as such. Yeah,
Okay.
but process is probably going to be similar. Fewer maybe
Mm.
rounds.
Okay.
Uh, they would, I'm guessing they would not expect system design. Also, very limited amount of behavioral interviews
Mhm.
or questions, but more on the same thing. The tech skills and the problem solving skills expectation would be very similar.
Okay. By any chance, are you aware of their roles and responsibilities, like what they do on a day to day basis?
That varies a lot based on
Okay.
org, teams, companies. But typically, what teams like to do is so generally, at least big tech, look at interns as future hires, right? Like they're
Mm-hmm.
not, they don't look at them as, or just do some dirty work that nobody else wants to do. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of defeating the purpose. Like you're building the future pipeline. So they try to come up with some specific project that could be finished during the time of internship. They may
Okay.
have some stretch goals that okay, you do at least this, and if you have time, like even better if you do this, this, and this. So
Sure.
something that is of value, something that is
Mm.
realistic to finish in 2 months or whatever the internship duration is, and that will give the intern a decent amount of insight into if they come back, what kind of work they'll be doing. So now,
Mm.
what that specific project is will vary across orgs and teams or even companies. But
Mm.
that's generally if I'm asked that, hey, you're getting an intern, like build a project. That's how I used to think, and that's how I will think.
Mm. Okay. Okay. Good. That's good to know. So I forgot to ask you one question about the interview process. So let's say someone who has been through all the rounds of an interview, and at last they got the no, they got the rejection. I'm sure it is disheartening because we all have been there, right, at some point or another. But what are the crucial next step that we should take as a constructive feedback, and how can we apply this in our career for the future growth?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning of the conversation, I discussed my experience, right? Like it happened with me. I interviewed at like three companies, and nothing worked out, and it was very,
Mm,
very demotivating, disheartening
mm,
kind of thing. But I think the main thing is you have to move on, right?
mhm,
Like you have to really internalize that
mm,
rejection is not a reflection on your self-worth, right?
mhm.
It is a point of time thing. It's
Yep.
it's a point of time event. Like okay, that did not go as per your wish or
Mm,
as per your expectation, but it doesn't define who you are. It doesn't
mm,
define like what kind of person you are, etc., etc. And it's really important to know because if you count yourself out, then there is hardly any hope, right? Like you have to
mm,
be learning from that, and so
mm,
that then that's the next step. Like you reflect on what you think did not
mhm,
go as per plan. Like did you
mhm,
struggle with explaining your point of view? Did you struggle with actually solving the problem? Did you struggle with coming up with some situation or trade-off or and whatever, right? Like I'm just
mm.
explaining, I mean, giving a couple of examples.
Sure.
Reflect on that. Even better if you have feedback, right? But unfortunately, I mean, for the right reasons, companies don't always give feedback, but sometimes recruiters might make an exception and give at least high level. Oh, this area, like you struggled or your answers were not good enough in this particular area, or they're expecting more data points in this area.
Mhm,
If you have whatever feedback you get, like that's good, right? So take that. Also brainstorm with others who are at that particular level or type of thing. So
mm,
consult with your friends who are, if you're interviewing for mid-level engineer,
mm,
consult with friends who are mid-level engineers on this is what I did. What do you think went wrong? Unless you know, like if like coding you couldn't solve a problem, then that's easy, right? But sometimes it's not as straightforward as that.
mm,
So seek others' opinion, and then most important thing is like work on that feedback, right? It just reflecting, knowing, and then not doing anything with it is kind of pointless. So
Sure.
in my specific example, as I said, like because it was more on the behavioral side,
Mm-hmm.
when I transferred teams, I tried to make sure that I'm thinking from that angle, that what do I need to demonstrate and
Mm-hmm.
how to kind of exert more ownership or expand the scope or
Mm-hmm.
show strategy, and then use those data points later on
Mm-hmm.
in the interviews. So
Okay.
put yourself in a position which will give you chance to kind of rectify whatever shortcomings you had. And sometimes things are just not meant to be, right? As I said, like it's not a reflection of who you are, and people will talk regardless, right? If so, don't worry about what people will say, what my friends will say. Did it make you a better engineer? Did it help you prepare more for your further rounds? Even in one particular like angle, like did it build your character in terms of how do you handle rejections, right? I think that is also an important learning and part of growth, in my opinion. It's not just whether you got the job or not. It's great if you do, but at least look at the positive one sides,
Mm.
because even no matter how disheartening and unpleasant that experience is, it has some learning. So focus on those.
Okay, awesome. That's a lot of constructive feedback, and I'm sure whoever is going through this phase will listen to this and apply this, and from the next time come back strong and reflect on things that went wrong and how we can improve it. Okay, so I think this would be a good time to end the podcast. Do you have any last pieces of advice for the aspiring software engineers? You
Yeah, I mean,
had shared a
hopefully
lot of those, I'm sure, but if you were to just summarize on a few of the point and the focus areas, that would be amazing.
focus areas, I think curiosity and ownership go a long way, right?
Okay.
Especially in the tech field when things are changing so fast,
Mm,
you have to show curiosity, you have to show adaptability and
mm,
kind of learning mindset, not
mm,
just, oh, I know this much and I'm only going to solve this much. You'll kind of fall behind. Strong ownership is really important. Like this is not my job. Like
yes.
preferably not. Don't think from that angle. Doesn't obviously mean that say yes to everything, but sometimes going beyond what is immediately expected for you help your own
Mm,
career. So do it
mm,
for selfish reason, not for
mm,
if not for something else. So demonstrate strong ownership, and what else? Behavioral. I think a lot of people kind of neglect that aspect. As I said earlier, like as you grow in your career, I think behavioral aspect, soft skills matter a lot.
mm,
That is not taught in any of our colleges, maybe for the right reasons, but focus on that. It helps you significantly. Like
mm,
even so, there's a baseline, as I said, baseline expectation of technical skills or actual hard skills. You sometimes like above somebody above that, like above that level, somebody could be better at solving these problems or super
mm,
amazing with certain technology, but you
mm,
can compensate for that by having better soft skills.
mm,
If people like to work with you, as long as you're getting the job done, you don't have to know all the answers. But if you know right people, if you know how to get things out of either your team or right people, that would play a more role than you knowing the skills, but you're really difficult to work with, right? So
mm, yeah.
definitely do not neglect that.
Mm,
Again, doesn't mean that that will compensate for lack of hard skills, but
mm.
it'll definitely help you a lot, especially as you grow in your career.
Okay, awesome. Okay, Vinit ji, that was really amazing, and it was really a pleasure talking to you and discussing all these important
Likewise,
things. And thank you for giving us your time, especially on a weekend morning. So I really appreciate
no
that.
worries.
And thank you so much. We'll talk soon. We'll keep in touch, and you have a good rest of the weekend. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Piyushi. Very nice chatting with you as well. 1.5 hours flew by,
Yeah,
so I
it
think
just flew by.
it's great. Hopefully, people will get something out of it. But one small last thing, like whatever I said is my experience. Like again, doesn't mean that you have to
Sure.
follow
Yeah,
everything.
that's what we are.
Use your
That's why
judgment
we are
and
here.
just
we
do that.
are we are here to share our experiences. They are not facts, or these are based on what we have gone through, and sharing our experience could help someone else who are also there in the same situation, or who are looking for some answers based on the experience. Otherwise, like these things, they can just Google and learn about it from some LLM or for some, but that wouldn't talk about the first hand experience, and these discussions will. So that's why we are here,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Thanks for the opportunity. It
Yeah,
was
thank you
nice
so
chatting with
much.
you.
Thanks.